And welcome to this Park Place Technologies Intuity software webinar. A couple housekeeping notes before we jump in. Please note that the audio will stream through your PC and laptop speakers. There is no separate dial-in option. Please enter any questions into the Q&A widget while the session is in progress or during the Q&A session at the end. Please check out the resource module for additional content and refer to the help widget for answers to frequently asked technical questions. Also, if you're interested in requesting a free demo for Entuity software, enter that into the widget as well. Now let's get started with Solutions Architect, Keith Dubé. Keith?
Thanks, Larry. Now let's take a look at the Entuity solution. I've got a few slides that I'll start with here. Okay, now let's look at Entuity software, a flexible, easy to use monitoring and management software from Park Place Technologies. What are some of the challenges that NetOps teams see? Network availability issues, end user experiences, NetOps teams productivity, shift from maintaining to innovating. I'll show you in the demo and this presentation how Entuity aims to counter those and find solutions to improve your network availability, end user experience, NetOps team productivity, and help you shift from maintaining to innovating. Other challenges that we see: driving down costs, downtime, and management complexity. We'll see how Entuity software helps you to navigate those challenges. And finally, we'll look at discovering your IT assets, giving you better visibility of the data that matters to you. So what is Entuity software? It's an all-in-one platform that helps you monitor, visualize, and manage your network. It's designed for today's complex networks. It boosts NetOps teams' efficiency and effectiveness, and it makes it easier to monitor, visualize, and manage the networks. And how do we do this? Through our monitoring and integration with third-party systems, such as ServiceNow, Splunk, BigPanda, BMC, Mooksoft, Slack, and a very configurable event management system that helps you create your own integrations with your own ITSM tools. These integrations help you enable faster event processing with ticketing systems, eliminate duplication of managing separate data silos, achieve faster MTTR and a longer MTBF, increased automation, allowing your staff to spend more time focusing on IT projects that are important to the business. Now let's look at the key features of the product. Here are some of the key features that you'll get from Entuity as an all-in-one platform. So that means it's a single software stream with all of this functionality embedded in a self-monitoring system. You will get live maps, application path analysis, event management, configuration management, IP address management, customizable dashboards. These are the items that I will show you today in the demo, but you have other features as well within the product: flow and N-bar, reporting, cloud and virtualization, business service modeling, automated discovery, APIs for integration with third parties, predictive trending for planning and forecasting, fault monitoring for any issues that you identify within your network, and performance monitoring. Now I'm going to take you to the Entuity user interface. This is what the Entuity user interface looks like. I've logged into my system and I've selected a dashboard for global sites. This dashboard shows me the critical sites that I have to monitor. These could be your different offices, manufacturing plants, branch locations, if you're a bank, for example. So wherever your sites are located, you can see them in a Google map with live status. But before we get into that, let's take a look at how to navigate the user interface and how data is organized. I've talked about the dashboard here, global sites. You have multiple dashboards that you can create, configure, customize. You can use out-of-the-box system dashboards and configure those to present the data that's meaningful to you. And by selecting these dashboards, you'll get the data that you want to see about your network. We also have a concept of views. This is groupings of devices and network elements that you're monitoring. I can select a view, and I'm presented by data about that view. And navigating across the dashboards, I see information related to that grouping of devices, whether that's a location, your headquarters, facility you have somewhere. These dashboards will respond to that selection of the view. Let's go back to our global dashboard. So I can see that there's an issue there. I select that. I can see that the United Kingdom is fine, and there's an issue in France. I'll come back to this in a moment. Selecting the United Kingdom, I have decided to show my application paths here. So I can see my path summary, and this is the path that my application users are seeing when they're accessing QuickBooks. If I zoom in, you'll see that we're seeing hops across the public internet and latency. This feature in Entuity allows you to detect latency to applications before users start complaining about it. If you have users or teams working off QuickBooks, then you can very easily be notified of issues with the QuickBooks application before it impacts those users. So that's a key feature of the tool using the SurePath module. If I now select France and I drill down into it and navigate to my incidents, let's take a look at what's going on here. So I know that there was one issue, which was level 5 severity in France. Selecting France here, I can see that that Ethernet interface has an issue there. There's a network outage. So from the global view, I'm very easily able to identify where the issues in my global network and drill down to them. Okay. So now we've seen how you can identify issues from your global Google Map integration, where you've got your different sites and you drill down to a site and see exactly what's going on there. That network outage incident that's currently open was causing that icon in the map to flag as red. And that allows your teams to start focusing on that particular issue. Let's switch to another view. Let's take a look at what's going on in South Africa. I've now navigated to my South Africa location, and I can see the incidents at that particular location. This one down here looks quite interesting. It's another network outage from the 25th of April. And if I wanted to navigate to that particular device, I could click on the blue icon there and go to the summary dashboard. So I'm navigating from dashboard to dashboard by clicking on the hyperlinks, and I can then access different information about that device. And right now I'm looking at the summary. So that's a router device. It's a Cisco 3640, and I can see the performance. So your CPU utilization, memory utilization, latency, and SNMP response times. I could switch to the ports tab and see the interfaces on that particular device and the live status. Going to the resources tab, I can see the processors, power supplies, memory, modules, router buffers, etc. on the device. And if any of these fails, for example, if CPU utilization exceeds a threshold, I'll get an alert on it. If a power supply fails, I will be alerted on it. Same for modules, your line cards on the devices. Now let's take a look at measures for reducing costs, downtime, and management complexity. I'll go back to my home page by clicking on the Entuity icon, and I'll select my RCA config management dashboard. This dashboard presents a topological map of my network. So I've switched from the Google Map integration, where I could see my sites on a Google Map, to a topology diagram, which is quite similar to what you might have in Visio, but with live status. So I can actually see the status of my devices. I can also see where I have alerts. So in Johannesburg, that incident that we just looked at, I can see that here with that red icon. On the right, I have an application path that's monitoring critical applications within that particular network. And over here, I've placed key interfaces that I want to be able to control and manage. Another feature that you have in the tool is the ability to push out configuration changes from the user interface. So I could right click on that interface and go to configuration management, and I could shut it down. So I can see that job has been successfully submitted. And what that will do is log into that device, shut down that interface, and we should see the status of this map changing as that interface shuts down and parts of the network become unavailable. So we can see that responding now. So that link has turned yellow. So that's already showing us that there's a problem there. And that site is now offline. And we can now see an event that is coming, telling us that there's a port that's unreachable. So Intuity's ICMP monitor is pinging the IP addresses that we've discovered on these devices and on the interfaces on those devices. This happens every 2 minutes. So when you have an outage, the system will pick this up within 2 minutes, and you'll start seeing alerts coming into the system for that. And your maps will also start responding to that. So you can actually see um, a visual representation of the problem. And from the map here, I can see that there's an issue there. So my team can start focusing on that particular issue. So if I zoom in, I can see that there's an issue there, and I can start focusing on that issue. But because I have this alert here, I can click on that hyperlink and navigate to the problem device. There we go. So that's the port that's gone down, and I can see that it has become unreachable. Let's go back. I can also see another alert that has come in, telling me that someone has made a change to the running configuration of the device. So two things have happened here. That part of the network became unavailable because somebody made a change to the network. I did this by right clicking on that and running automation from Intuity, but the system has picked it up. So I know that somebody has made that change, and that change has caused that network outage alert. So I can then find out who has made that change and why they've made that change and start remediating that. But I also know exactly where the change was made, and that helps you reduce your mean time to recover or repair. Now that we've seen the alerts coming in from that configuration management change where we've shut down an interface, let's drill down into that particular device and see what the change is. So I've navigated to that particular device, PC Core 01. If I go to the configuration monitoring dashboard, I can see my backed up configurations. So when Intuity detects a change in your configuration, it will automatically back it up for you. I can then right click on that and compare my running and startup configuration. And I can see that here, that that interface has been shut down. So that's quite a useful feature that you get from the product, where changes can be made from the tool, helping you the automation. But once changes are made, Entuity can back up your device's configurations, and you can actually run comparisons of your startup and running configuration to see what those changes are. You can also favorite configurations. So if you have a baseline configuration or your golden configuration set, you can select that and the new configuration. And by right clicking, I can compare the running configurations to see how this deviates from my golden configuration or my favorited configuration. And we can see here that the only difference is that interface being shut down. Now let's go back and take a look at something else on the Intuity user interface. Let's look at how we can improve IT asset discovery and visibility of the data that matters to you. So as I mentioned, Entuity is an all-in-one platform. And that means you've got your reporting, your event management, your discovery, you've got your flow, you've got your short path for application path discovery that we've looked at. We've got our Google Map integrations. We've also got APIs and integrations with third-party tools. One thing to note with the product is that it's vendor agnostic. So unlike vendor proprietary tools that will specify on their device models or their technology, Entuity allows you to monitor devices from multiple vendors. Huawei, for example, here, Cisco, APC, Juniper, Viptela, Aruba, your F5s. And it's not just network devices. We've got servers in there as well and VM platforms. So regardless of the technology or the device model or type, Entuity is going to pick up data from all of those and present them in a single UI, and will normalize that data so it's easier to report on. So regardless of the vendor, I can run a report on my model numbers, my versions, software versions, serial numbers, etc. Now, if I drill down into my F5 device, if you remember what the router looked like that went down in Johannesburg, our Cisco router, you'll notice that the UI looks very similar. We'll present you a summary dashboard with key information, your CPU utilization, memory utilization, latency, SNMP response time. We'll have your incidents dashboard there that will present you with any incidents or alerts on that particular device. Currently, we don't have any because this device is in very good health at the moment. We'll have our ports dashboard that will show you your interfaces and the status of those interfaces. Your resources again. So it's a very similar layout from dashboard to dashboard, regardless of the device type that you're looking at or the manufacturer, which makes the solution a lot easier to navigate because every dashboard is familiar to the user. If I go to my network and I go to my top end ports dashboard, from here, I can see all my top interfaces for inbound utilization, discard, faults, outbound utilization, discards, and fault. This helps you to identify hit areas where you've got highly utilized assets And that helps you to start remediating any issues that you have, or maybe thinking about capacity and enhancing your capacity in that area. If I select that, I can then see a chart of that particular utilization. But the key takeaway here is that from this dashboard, you can bring forward the data that you need. So I could actually go and edit that dashboard, remove any data that I don't want to see. I could add more data if I wanted to. And I've now customized that dashboard to suit my needs. So for your teams, it makes it easier for you to configure the UI so only the information that's required by a specific team or specific user is exposed to them. And all this is also controlled using our role-based access control. I'll discard that for now. Now let's go and look at administration. So from the administration dashboards or window, you have access to all the administrative dashboards that you can use for configuring the tool. And the one I want to focus on here is IP address management. This is a new feature in version 21, where Entuity will discover and monitor your IP address ranges. And we also support DHCP servers. So you can have your DHCP scopes in there. I don't have one on this system, but I can show you the networks here. And I'll show you a system that has a DHCP server in a moment. So within the IP address management, I can add networks. I can import networks. So this could be a file that I want to import. Once those networks are added to the system, Intuity will start monitoring them and looking at the usage. So how much of that network is actually being used? So that one's only at 5% there. This one's at 58%. We'll also set thresholds for this, which will alert when a network is overutilized. Now, if I select Columbia Factory, for example, I can take a look at the IP addresses that are there. That shows me all the IP addresses and which ones are active. I'll go back. In this pane here, you'll notice we have zones. What happens if you have overlapping IP addresses? And Intuity has a concept of zones, where you can segregate your networks with overlapping IP addresses. And our IP address management supports this feature as well. So it allows you to create zones where you might have overlapping IP addresses, and then you can have a hierarchy of networks. So that's your company level network. I can have my sub networks in there, and these can be nested. Within the child networks, these should be unique and should not overlap unless they follow the hierarchy. As an example, I could have company, and within it, I can have an IP address range that overlaps with company. But these child networks should not overlap. For that scenario, you use zones to separate the two networks and avoid any overlap in there. Okay, so again, I'll go to my administration and let's find IP address management. And in here, I can see my DHCP server. And I can see the scopes in there. So if you have a DHCP server, you could add that to Intuity as well and import your scopes from there and create networks to monitor. When you add a DHCP server, we'll support WinRM, Windows, or ISC, SSH access for the DHCP server. Once the DHCP server is added, you can add a network from the scope. And once that network is added from the scope, you can navigate to networks and you'll see your networks in there. And we'll start monitoring those and raising alerts on them as well. What we do for monitoring networks, I'll show you here in the settings, where we'll have a scan period. So how frequently do you want to scan that network? How frequently do you want to scan the DHCP server? And I'll come down here and show you where we set our thresholds. So your medium usage, you can set here 50%, and your high usage at 80%. And we'll have these events as well. So usage high threshold events or DHCP conflict events. Once this is set up, Entuity will then start monitoring your IP addresses. So we can do a ping scan. We can do ARP as well, and reverse DNS, as well as DHCP. So that adds IP address management to the Entuity platform as part of the base license. Okay, so that's what I wanted to cover today. And we'll now move over to questions.
Well, thank you, Keith. Great work. Now let's dive into some audience questions. First question, I'm interested in Intuity software, but prefer to not have on-prem software. What are the other engagement options?
There are quite a number of options that you can have here. If you wanted to, you could run the software in your own private cloud, or you could run it in AWS or Azure. That would work. But we also have a managed services offering where we would run the software for you and you log into our online portal to consume the data.
Nice, lots of options there. Next question, does the Intuity software solution require an external database?
That's a question I come across quite a lot. The solution does not require an external database. It's an all-in-one solution with all the functionality and its own inbuilt database. Once you've installed the software and configured it using our installation wizard, the platform will manage all of its components and processes for you. And the benefit to that is that you get reduced administrative overheads for implementation and ongoing system management.
Well, reduced overhead is something everybody can relate to and needs, right? So the next
Definitely.
question from our audience is, how scalable is the Intuity software solution?
The solution scales really well. So you can scale up by adding more resources or scale out by adding additional polars. So when you scale up by adding more resources, you can monitor up to 70,000 interfaces or in excess of 70,000 interfaces and 1,000 devices on a single server. You can scale out by adding more polars to manage a larger estate, and you consolidate all of these into a single pane of glass. So you get one UI that you log into and you see your entire estate.
Nice. Next question from the audience, Keith. What are the new features that can be seen in version 21 of Intuity software?
So we've received a number of requests from our customers for new functionality, and we're continuously working on adding this functionality and making sure that we're listening to what our customers are asking for. One of the main things that you'll see in version 21 is our IP address management feature that we recently added. You'll also see support for keyboard navigation, multi-server topology. We've also got functionality enabling users to import and export custom configuration management steps, which was a big requirement from a number of our customers that are using our configuration management tool. We've also added new system configuration management steps. That means that we can now support more vendors for configuration management. We also have some enhancements like VMware monitoring. We've done some work with our custom webhooks. There's also improvement to our Entuity server health monitoring, so the system's even better at monitoring itself, and several other enhancements that you'll see in the software.
Nice. And that goes along with Park Place's general philosophy of mirroring back customer needs and requests. So that is good news to hear. Of course, we're here with solutions architect Keith Dubé answering your questions on Intuity software after today's webinar. And Keith, here's one that's kind of a mouthful. Most tools will have the same functionality, APIs, dashboards and alerts, etc. Does Intuity software have native integrations with IT service management and CMDB solutions?
Definitely. So Intuity has several integrations with ITSM tools that come out of the box, but we also give you the ability to use our event management system, our REST API, and data export features to integrate with third-party tools. So you can use our inbuilt integrations, or you can configure your own using the UI.
Okay. Here's another question from a viewer. Does Intuity software support the grouping of devices by attributes, such as location, organization, etc., that allow these devices to be managed centrally?
Yes, we use a concept of views to logically group managed assets for ease of reporting, dashboard presentation, event processing, and more. Views can be manually populated, so you can drag and drop assets into a view, or you can dynamically populate them using attributes that are on those assets.
Okay. Keith, you're on a roll here with the yeses. I like that. Let's see if we can keep the streak going. Another question from viewers. Now, and the viewer says, now we have multiple locations. Does Intuity software support multi-locational deployment?
Yes, another yes for
Nice.
you there. We have several customers with geographically dispersed assets from a single location and others with polars, so they can monitor this from a single location, or we've got the option to have polars in remote locations, which you can then consolidate.
All right. Well, I want to keep you at your hot streak here. So thank you, Keith, for walking us through the webinar today. And thank you for taking these questions from the audience.
You're welcome.
And thank you, viewers, for joining. Now, we don't have time to answer every question, but we will get back to you if you send a question in the chat. And to request a free proof of concept for Intuity software, just click on the top left widget or visit intuity.com.